From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. This is News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Tonight, Senate President Aman Lawan visits President Muhammadu Buhari and discusses rising security crisis in the north and leadership crisis rocking the ruling All Progressives Congress. Ondo State Deputy Governor dumps ruling All Progressives Congress, joins main opposition PDP ahead of October governorship election. It's the eve of the Edo APC governorship primary as party factions hold different views on legality of conduct. National Association of Resident Doctors suspends 6-day strike with the federal government, giving assurance of prompt payment of their salaries and allowances. And the UK police raised concern over act of terrorism following series of stabbings in Reading plus sports stories. The security challenge in the northern part of the country is a major concern for leaders, and this again came to the front burner as the Senate President Aman Lawan meets with the President of the Villa to discuss the matter. At the end of the closed-door meeting, the Senate President told State House correspondents that the heads of agencies, especially the service chiefs, must sit up.
Come to meet with Mr. President to discuss with him what we have discussed in the Senate previously, that we should do whatever it takes to improve the security situation in the country. And we believe that the Senate and indeed the National Assembly is positively disposed to receiving even supplementary budget, purposely to address the fundamental needs of the security agencies of our country, so that we are able to empower them, enable them to fight the Boko Haram in the northeast, banditry, and other security challenges across the country. We also believe that in the Senate, particularly, we believe that we need to provide more resources for recruitment by the security agencies. And those who are heading these agencies, especially the service chiefs, must sit up. They must sit up. In fact, we must have milestones and timelines on how we are going to deal with this. We can't just go on without any time frame for dealing with these issues. If after we provide some support and someone is found short of expectation, he should be shown out of the way if he refuses to go.
Now, apart from security, the Senate President also says he discussed the crisis rocking the ruling All Progressives Congress, and he maintains that the party is capable of handling its own crisis.
I also had the opportunity to talk to my leader, the President, about the challenges in APC. I believe that we have to deal with these challenges. This is the ruling party of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, with the President in control of the National Assembly, with more governors than any other political party. The situation must not be allowed to degenerate further than it has. And I believe that we must go into our constitution, the constitution of our party, and see how we are to address this. But we must not allow the situation to continue as it is today. Because the stability of APC is the stability of Nigeria. This is the party that is running the affairs of this country. So I believe that we have to sort this out. And I had the opportunity to discuss that with Mr. President, who is the leader of the party in Nigeria. And by the grace of God, in a very few days, we will see certain actions that will be taken. And I'm praying that all our leaders in the party across the country make every possible effort to get the party reconciled.
Staying with the political crisis rocking the APC, the Deputy Governor of Ondo State, Honorable Agboola Ajayi, has resigned his membership of the party and is now pitching his tent with the main opposition, the People's Democratic Party. Mr. Ajayi announced his resignation today at his country home in Akeredolu local government area of the state. It's coming a few hours after he was allegedly prevented by the State Commissioner of Police, Bolaji Salami, from moving out of Government House. The former Deputy Governor also used the opportunity to pick his membership card for the People's Democratic Party right there at his ward in Apoy community. While addressing party loyalists, Ajayi expressed his delight to be back in the PDP.
As from today, 21st of June, I've ceased to be a member of APC. I've come to tender my resignation as a member of APC to the chairman of this ward. And I also gave a copy of the same letter to the chairman of SLDO APC. Both of them are here now.
Meanwhile, the Ondo State Governor, Rotimi Akeredolu, has denied sending the Commissioner of Police to prevent the Deputy Governor from leaving the premises of Government House, noting that nothing can be farther from the truth. The governor's spokesperson said in a statement that the scene was acted out to discredit the governor. The statement adds that the police prevented the Deputy Governor from leaving the premises at midnight without inventory being taken. It explains that the police advised him to stay until daybreak, when government officials will be available. We're staying with the APC. The arm of the party in Rivers State has suspended the acting national chairman of the party, Victor Gadom, over acts of gross infractions of the party's constitution. A statement by the media advisor to the Rivers State chairman of the APC says the fact-finding committee of the party recommended that Mr. Gadom be immediately suspended from the party and every activity for his numerous infractions, which, according to the statement, have brought the party irredeemable disrepute. The statement also asked Mr. Gadom to immediately write a letter of apology to the party, which should be published in 3 national newspapers. Mr. Gadom had declared himself acting national chairman of the APC based on a court injunction which he obtained in March. Before then, he was Deputy National Secretary of the party. Meanwhile, the Northeast National Vice Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Salihu Mustafa, has dismissed the claims that the Deputy National Secretary, Mr. Victor Gadom, resigned from the party. And in Edo State, the All Progressives Congress says it is set to go ahead with its primary election to pick a candidate for the governorship election tomorrow, while the party insists that the issue of pending litigation on the mode of primary is of no consequence. The chairman, Anselm Ojezwa, deems the exercise, if conducted, a nullity. The state government, on its part, cautions that the party must follow the COVID-19 prevention order on political gatherings, which requires obtaining a written approval from the state government.
Pending before the Federal High Court in Benin City, the Edo State capital, is a suit challenging the All Progressives Congress APC planned mode of primary election for the Edo governorship 2020 race. But this does not seem enough to deter the party from firming up plans to conduct its primary.
The APC primaries for Edo State governorship elections 2020 will take place tomorrow, Monday 22nd, as scheduled. Those litigations that are currently ongoing regarding the mode of primary is merely wasting the cost time. It's an abuse of court process. Pastor Sage Izeyamu is still in the race. Right Honorable Pius Odubu is still in the race. Honorable Sarah Obaze is still in the race.
He also addresses the state government's COVID-19 prevention order.
The Gazette limits the gathering of persons to 20. That it is when persons, the number is above 20, that you need the written permission of Mr. Governor. So as long as we are not breaking the law, I don't see what's going to stop us from conducting primaries.
The state government, however, insists that the order is in the interest of its people.
These rules that we are enforcing here, even the gazette that we have, the law that we've gazetted, they are all in tandem. So if they are breaking our rules here, they're also breaking national rules, and it's not to be entertained or accepted. We are aware that the APC has also imported thugs into the state to aid and abet they are carrying out this illegal activity. We are also using the opportunity to alert security agencies that this is what they plan to do.
The state chairman of the APC, Ansem Ojezwa, raises other issues.
Let me tell you, whatever they do tomorrow, the bona fide members of APC in Edo State will not be party to it. Number one, it is illegal. Number two, it is not our choice. We will not accept it. Should they continue, it will be a nullity. We will go to court.
On the matter of security, the Edo State Police Command assures the public of its preparedness in conjunction with sister security agencies.
The Edo State Police Command is fully aware about the APC's primaries scheduled for tomorrow, on Monday. Reacting to the allegation of the importation of drugs by APC, the command has not received such information. Nevertheless, all these security arrangements in place is able to counter any criminal elements.
Of utmost importance to concerned citizens, however, is the maintenance of peace, safety and development of the state. These they want all players to take into consideration and steps to take on June the 22nd. Jessica Olubuse, Channels Television News.
From the APC, we move to the main opposition, the PDP, where Governor of Delta State, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, believes his party will offer a better platform for his Edo State counterpart, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, to achieve his political goals. Dr. Okowa, who was speaking to journalists at Government House in Benin City, the Edo State capital, after PDP stakeholders meeting, said he's happy to have Mr. Obaseki as a PDP colleague. On his part, Mr. Obaseki says he will bring party leaders together to ensure a peaceful atmosphere going into the party's governorship primary, scheduled for Thursday, June 25th.
I think first it was a breaking news when His Excellency Governor Godwin Obaseki joined the PDP. And as a friend and a colleague from a sister state, because we never forget the bundle. I came here first to rejoice with my brother who has come to the PDP, and also to rejoice with our party leaders in the PDP for opening their arms for the governor to come in to be part of the PDP family. So it's a time we've come to felicitate with ourselves, to rejoice with ourselves. And I've actually come here to say congratulations. I know that he's been doing a great job in Edo State. I'm proud to associate with him. And I believe that having come into the PDP, where there are no restrictions, he's obviously going to go more into the future to do a greater job for the people of Edo State. Congratulations, my brother.
Thank you. First, I want to thank my brother, Governor Okowa, for coming to support us and to help in the process of galvanizing the PDP for me in Edo State. As the governor and the leader of PDP in Edo State, my responsibility is to make sure that the PDP continues to enjoy victory in Edo State. And in doing so, we are a united house in PDP. And so what I am doing to ensure that we have victory is to make sure that we continue to harmonize members, we continue to talk to one another, all those who've indicated
interest and desire to contest. And PDP is a very organized party. PDP does not do things with impunity. And I believe that with the leaders I have here, we will come to some resolution on how to go about the elections at the primaries on Thursday.
In part two, after the break, we'll have stories on coronavirus across Nigeria, plus 2 persons feared killed in explosion following multiple accidents by articulated trucks on Kara Bridge along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Please join us again. Welcome back. If it has joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Senate President Ahmed Lawan visits President Muhammadu Buhari, discusses rising security crisis in the north and leadership crisis rocking the All Progressives Congress. Ondo State Deputy Governor dumps ruling All Progressives Congress, joins main opposition PDP ahead of October governorship election. It's the eve of the Edo APC governorship primary as party factions hold different views on legality of conduct. National Association of Resident Doctors suspends 6-day strike, with the federal government giving assurance of prompt payment of their salaries and allowances. And UK police raise concern over act of terrorism following series of stabbings in Reading. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. A 2.5-year-old girl has tested positive for COVID-19 in Ogun State. The management of the Federal Medical Center in the state capital, Abeokuta, says the girl was admitted to the facility 8 days ago on account of breathlessness. The hospital says tests were subsequently carried out on her, including COVID-19, for which she tested positive. The hospital management says it has initiated contact tracing of her relatives. Meanwhile, 2 officials of the Delta State government are among the latest patients to test positive for coronavirus disease. The Chief Press Secretary to the Governor, Mr. Olisa Ifejika, named the officials as Secretaries of the State Government, Mr. Chiedu Ebie, and Commissioner for Information, Mr. Charles Anyagu. According to the governor's spokesperson, both officials showed mild symptoms of the virus and consequently subjected themselves to the test. He says in a statement that they are currently in isolation and are in stable condition. Residents of the state have once again been advised to strictly adhere to COVID-19 protocols, as anyone, irrespective of status, could contract the virus. It is good news from Lagos State, where 45 patients have just been discharged from various isolation centers. 18 of those discharged were female and the others 27 male. In a statement by the state governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, it shows that 20 of the patients are from Bagada, 9 from Onikon, 2 from Mainland Infectious Disease Hospital Yaba. 1 each were discharged from facilities in Agidingbi and Lekki, while 12 persons were discharged from the Lagos University Teaching Hospital Isolation Center. That brings to 1,328 the number of COVID-19 confirmed cases that have been discharged in Lagos, having tested negative to the coronavirus. Now, after 6 days, the Nasarawa State government is taking the awareness on COVID-19 pandemic to the hinterlands following the non-compliance to safety protocols in the state. The sensitization program, which became necessary after the relaxation of COVID-19 containment restrictions and increase in confirmed cases in the state, is to cover the 13 local government areas. Our correspondent, Halima Gayom, has more.
Moving about with faces covered is now a new way of life. The use of face masks is considered one of the safest bets for protection against the coronavirus as states relax the lockdown order in order to boost their economies. Around Nasarawa metropolis, residents use their masks inappropriately even while in crowded areas. For them, after all, they are wearing a mask. Other safety protocols, especially physical distancing, are also defied, prompting the government to intensify awareness campaigns. Kiana local government area is the first port of call. Here, most residents are unaware of the existence of the virus. The state health team are here to sensitize them on personal safety using their local language. Aged men are shown how to use sanitizers and wear a mask. Aged women too receive safety items. Persons with disabilities are not left out. Some are followed to their houses to ensure the message gets across. Other local government areas are to be covered in the coming days as residents promise adherence.
The idea is for him to continue to travel to each local government to distribute face masks and to continue the teaching on keeping your hands clean, protecting yourself when you're coughing. And like you can see, I have a couple of team members here who are psychologists. So the idea is also to cancel them, that if this does happen, it's not a death sentence.
We are much grateful for the governor that initiates, we want people at least from the grassroots to at least protect themselves from the coronavirus. The people from locality, people from the rural area, to feel the impact of the government.
Community engagement is the new approach the Nasarawa state government is adopting to sensitize the people on personal safety as it works towards flattening the curve of the pandemic in the state. Halima Gayam, Channels Television News.
After 6 days of downing tools and calling national attention to the plight of doctors, the National Association of Resident Doctors announced the suspension of their strike action effective Monday, June 22nd. The president of the association, Dr. Aliyu Sokomba, says the National Executive Council of the association decided to suspend the strike after a virtual meeting of over 300 of its members. He explains that the suspension is aimed at giving the federal and state governments time to fulfill the outstanding demands of the association.
Medical experts and patients can now heave a sigh of relief as normalcy returns to the healthcare sector following the suspension of the 6-day-old strike by the National Association of Resident Doctors.
This decision to suspend the strike action was taken in order to give the federal as well as the state government time to fulfill the outstanding demands.
In the first few days of the strike, hospitals were already overburdened with the backlog of patients not having access to medical care in many parts of the country. With the suspension of the strike, the Minister of Health allays the fears of the doctors.
The mechanisms to pay this allowance are what is being worked out. And the intention of the government should not be misunderstood.
When the doctors' strike began on June the 15th, conversations around the timing of the strike were held in various quarters, with many questioning the commitment of the doctors to their Hippocratic oath, while others blamed the government for being insensitive to the plight of the doctors who serve as frontline workers in the fight against COVID-19. The Garki General Hospital saw a rise in the number of patients from across the nation's capital, mostly because the resident doctors here were not a part of the strike, a situation the patients were very happy about.
I'm overwhelmed with this hospital. Both the nurses, the doctors, everybody that I've come in contact with, they all treated us well.
They see me every day, they come around. I can't feel the strike because they feel we are one.
Although the strike has been suspended, the hospital management expresses worries over the effect of a prolonged industrial action in the health sector.
Well, we do our best, yes, but of course there is a limit to,
what we will be able to handle. If the resident doctors at the isolation centers down tools, then we will have a very big problem to contend with.
The federal government has 30 days to meet the remaining demands of the resident doctors, which include sustained supply PPEs to hospitals, implementation of the Medical Residency Training Fund in all states, fixing the salary shortfall for 2014 to 2016, and the payment of COVID-19 inducement and hazard allowance at all federal health institutions in the country. It is near impossible to quantify how many lives have been lost because of the 6-day strike or what hardships patients may have had to go through. It is, however, important that the government and health workers reach an agreement that works for the people they have both sworn to serve.
The Lagos State Management Agency, LASEMA, says more than one person may have died from an explosion involving several articulated vehicles on Kara Bridge along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway in Ogun State. Road safety officials stopped vehicular movement at both ends, resulting in a massive traffic congestion. Our correspondent, Akeredolu, reports.
A blaze sparked by an accident involving several articulated vehicles at the dead of the night. The fire raged, spilling over till daybreak. 2 tankers carrying petrol, another loaded with gas, an articulated truck, all involved. As firemen mount the water pressure, the fire is reignited. A body is recovered as emergency workers continue to battle the inferno.
There are more fatality because some were burnt to the bone level, and we will do a sort of pathological analysis before we could ascertain those that are burnt to that level.
The notorious traffic that usually accompanies such incident builds covering many kilometers away from the scene of the accident.
After very long hours of battling with the inferno on the Kara axis of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, emergency management officials have been able to put out the fire completely. They are working to reopen the road to traffic. But one major question they are yet to answer is the level of damage the accident has caused on this bridge.
One too many, they say, and this same spot has seen several accidents this year alone.
If you remember, this is the 3rd time within the last 1 year something on this very spot had happened, so we had to raise the issue. We have seen some cracks on the asphalt, and I raised this issue. What of the integrity nature of this very spot?
One after the other, they pull the vehicles off the road, clearing the debris and preparing the bridge for use. It's a Sunday, but a business day for scavengers who invade the scene, attempting to beat the already down vehicles to bits and pieces. Emergency operation has been called off, but the real cause of the many accidents on this axis is yet to be ascertained. Akeredolu, Channels Television News.
When the news at 10 returns, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, the NNPC, and Seplat Petroleum Development Company begin construction of $1.2 billion permanent emergency and infectious diseases hospital in Imo State. Please join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. The Department of Petroleum Resources in Adamawa State has cautioned petroleum marketers to comply with government's new pump price or face the consequences. The warning was given by the controller of the DPR Adamawa field office while on an inspection tour of filling stations within Yola, the state capital. According to him, despite ample time given to enable filling stations adjust to the new pump price as ordered by the federal government, many are yet to comply.
Since the introduction of a new pump price of fuel, the Department of Petroleum Resources is trying to ensure compliance with the new price. It's for this reason that the DPR is out in Yola, the Adamawa state capital, to monitor the level of compliance. The controller of the Yola field office, in the company of other officials, are visiting petrol stations within the state capital. One of the marketers selling below the government-approved pump price explains the reason behind his action, just as the controller of the Yola field office ordered the sealing of one of the major filling stations for selling above the government-approved price.
If you check the ex-depot price of the PPMC, if you calculate it, you know there is still profit on what we are doing.
Petrol Resources Yola field office has given them enough grace, enough latitude to adjust. So failure to do so, we will be compelled to take such punitive measures. We are not happy closing down business facilities or premises. But when a marketer fails to comply with the federal government directive, we will not have any choice than to put his facility under seal.
Some vehicle owners see the exercise as crucial, particularly in alleviating the sufferings of people at a time when the country is experiencing economic crunch because of the coronavirus pandemic.
At times, they will go and talk with this filling station, but the moment they leave, you discover that they hike the price again. So they should ensure that this order is carried out to the latter, to make sure that filling stations are selling this petrol at the stipulated price.
Once the federal government issue an order, the filling station, I think they have a branch. They're supposed to comply and sell because we are all Nigerians. Then that reduction in price supposed to take place in any other state, despite the distance and locality of the place.
The DPR has been on the alert in Adamawa State in checkmating the activities of some unscrupulous petroleum marketers who illegally ferry petroleum products across the border to neighboring countries, resulting in huge revenue loss to the country.
As part of efforts to tackle the coronavirus pandemic, indigenous oil and gas companies, Seplat Petroleum Development Company, and the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, the NNPC, have commenced construction of a $1.2 million, 150 to 200 bed permanent emergency and infectious diseases hospital in Olu, Imo State. The chairman of Seplat Petroleum Development Company, Ambrose Ojiako, at the groundbreaking ceremony of the Imo State University Teaching Hospital Olu, says the medical facility will strengthen the state's efforts at fighting COVID-19 and providing treatment of other forms of infections for infectious diseases.
It's the groundbreaking of the construction of a 150 to 200 bed permanent emergency and infectious diseases hospital worth $1.2 million. Dignitaries arrive at the Imo State University Teaching Hospital Olu for the event. For NNPC and Seplat, the facility is one of 12 hospitals they intend to construct across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country to strengthen national healthcare facilities in the fight against COVID-19 and other infectious diseases.
Since we had the very first index case in February of this year, we have been watching as the numbers increase very astronomically, and it therefore means that we can no longer fold our hands and watch, but to join hands with the global community in the fight against this pestilence.
We are very happy to be working in both states and operating in Imo State. We have very many more plans. In addition to the gas plant that is ABC Ojiako has mentioned, we are also looking forward to establishing another modular refinery, specifically a condensate refinery in Imo State.
The multi-million-dollar project is one of the 3 categories of the oil and gas industry intervention initiatives on COVID-19, and the Minister of State for Petroleum, Timipre Silva, believes it'll go a long way towards relieving the burden on existing facilities.
The intervention initiative is in alignment with the ongoing federal government effort to curb the pandemic through the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19.
The choice of Imo State as the site for the project is a decision Governor Hope Uzodinma considers laudable to complement efforts of health workers in the state.
With the construction of this specialist hospital, the threat of contagious diseases such as coronavirus, AIDS, otherwise known as acquired immune deficiency syndrome, cholera, Ebola, avian influenza or bird flu, or even hepatitis can be effectively controlled and contained.
The governor then performs the groundbreaking of the proposed hospital. The proposed permanent emergency and infectious diseases hospital by SEPLAT and the NNPC is expected to serve the entire southeast region. A similar event earlier held in Katsina State for the northwest region, Borno State for the northeast, and Bayelsa State in the south-south.
Nigeria is set to be fighting two wars, and both must be won. You have the coronavirus war and the war against insurgency. Now, earlier this week, President Muhammadu Buhari demanded better results from service chiefs. But how can leaders of Nigeria's security system perform better than their best? Tonight, to share insights on new ideas that can be used to fight the rising cases of banditry, kidnapping and terrorism, is information consultant Babajide Ogusowo. He joins us now on the News at 10. Babajide, great to see you.
Good evening, Amarachi.
Good evening. So there does seem to be a new wave of terrorism, unfortunately, especially in the Northwest. And, for the period of time the coronavirus was, there was a lot of attention on coronavirus. There really wasn't much said about insecurity. It all seems to have died down, but it seems to have resuscitated again. Is there any research at this point that points to why this is happening?
Perhaps we should ask ourselves, what is the most important thing on the mind of a criminal? And I'll share that with you tonight, and I think it will surprise you. But what research shows is that crime has many friends, has many neighbors. But going by what the Greek philosopher Aristotle believes, he says, poverty is the parent of revolution and crime. And if we believe the role of poverty in crime and terrorism, then we should look at that most recent report on poverty by the National Bureau of Statistics, because that will allow us to see the marriage that is going on between poverty and insecurity. And I would like us to start from that tonight by taking a look at the marriage between poverty and insecurity. And here's what you find once we look at that. From the research from the National Bureau of Statistics, they say that there are 16 states in the country where more than half of the families are poor. 16 states in the country. If we look at those states, here's what you find among those 16 states. All of those states, apart from two, are located in the northern regions of Nigeria. From the research from the Bureau of Statistics, it shows that in the Northwest, all of the states in the Northwest, except for Kaduna, more than half of families living in the Northwest are living above the poverty line. And so it lets us understand, and we shouldn't be surprised by the news of crime, terrorism, banditry, and kidnapping, because we've been able to see that in the regions where there's higher poverty is also where we have higher insecurity. Remember Aristotle, poverty is the parent of revolution and crime. So we shouldn't be surprised.
Well, some analysts have said that there is a cultural dimension to this, and especially for areas where you have grazing land. What should be done then to minimize such conflicts?
So yes, we have evidence that there's a cultural dimension between the Hausas and the Fulanis. But I'd like to link this with the start of the coronavirus. Last year in Wuhan, when the coronavirus started in Wuhan, it was not the Nigerian government's responsibility. But eventually it moved to Europe, America, Asia. And what started as not being our responsibility has become our problem. And so with security, that's the situation we find ourselves. There are several things that are not the responsibility of the security agencies, but it has become their problem. And so let's look at the cycle. What I mean is, if families are poor, then they will not be able to afford good health and education. If families are Marachi cannot afford good education, they will not get jobs. And if families do not have jobs, the state government will not get tax. If the state government doesn't get tax, then the state government wouldn't be able to develop anything, and the cycle of poverty goes on and on. So while it is important for the security agencies to rethink and be more proactive with their approach to security, we all need to understand that there are a lot of non-security factors that are affecting security in Nigeria.
Yeah, but we've been talking about security for such a long time, and people are tired of asking what's been done about it. But now, when will it end?
Now, that's a tough question. We need to look at the security factors and the non-security factors together. But here's what I found out, and that is there have been 4 waves in our fight against terrorism. And if we want to sustain our fight towards terrorism, we need to understand these 4 waves of fighting terrorism. So I want us to take a look at that. Okay. The first wave was 2002 to 2010. What you find in the first wave of terrorism in Nigeria was that it was flat. 2002 to 2010. That's the number of deaths recorded due to terrorism. It was flat. The second wave started in 2011 and ended in 2014. The second wave was the wave we saw a rise in terrorism, peaking in 2014. The third wave started in 2015 and ended in 2017, which was a decline in the number of deaths recorded in terrorism. Now, we're on the fourth wave, which started in 2018. In all, what we've seen is in each of these waves, the terrorists are changing strategies. And we need to also understand that the terrorists also watch the news. And so we need to take that discussion away from the news and stop revealing our strategies every time security chiefs meet. We need to be more proactive rather than reactive in our approach to terrorism.
Well, thank you so much. I'm sure that the security chiefs don't reveal everything on TV. They do leave some to discuss with government officials and those who really need to hear those suggestions. But thanks again.
But in the final words, we need to understand that knowledge is limited. There's something that is greater than knowledge, and that is imagination. Imagination has no limit. So our security chiefs and our leaders of non-security systems need to be able to imagine rather than just focusing a lot on knowledge. And once we're able to imagine victory and take actions and stop talking a lot in the news and revealing our strategies, then we will make more progress.
Copy that, Babajide. Thanks again.
Pleasure is all mine, Amarachi.
Well, still ahead on the news at 10, UK police raise concern over act of terrorism following series of stabbings in Reading. Join us again. Welcome back. 3 people are reported to have been killed on Saturday following a violent clash between farmers and herders in Guri local government area of Jigawa State. The local government chairman, Barkono Jaji Adiani, who confirmed the incident to journalists, said he attended the funeral of all the dead victims. And according to an official of the local government, the clash occurred after a resident of Arin community, was attacked and badly injured by some Fulani men who had ambushed him in a bush path. He says all the victims are residents of Adiani, Kanuri-dominated farming community. When contacted, the police public relations officer in the state, Abdu Jinjiri, said he is yet to receive proper report from the police division in Guri local government and Guri local council. Meanwhile, the federal government has condemned the invasion and demolition of a residential building housing the country's diplomatic premises by unknown persons in Accra, Ghana. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Onyama, confirmed the Nigerian government's position in a tweet today. According to Mr. Onyama, the federal government strongly condemns 2 outrageous criminal attacks in which unknown persons used a bulldozer to demolish the building. He says the federal government is engaging the Ghanaian government to demand urgent action to find the perpetrators and provide adequate protection for Nigerians and their property in Ghana. Meanwhile, the government of the Republic of Ghana has been reacting to the demolition of a property on the premises of the Nigeria High Commission in Accra. The country describes it as a breach of Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. In a statement, the country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration says the investigation is ongoing to ascertain the facts of the matter, promising to bring the perpetrators to book. According to the statement, the Ghanaian government expresses regrets over the incident, promising the diplomatic community in the country and the Nigeria High Commission in particular that Ghana remains a law-abiding country. The West African country is, however, promising to continue with what it calls its primary obligation, which is to guarantee the safety of members of the diplomatic corps in Ghana. Police in the UK have described a stabbing rampage in the southern English town of Reading, in which 3 people were killed and others wounded, an act of terrorism. Detectives said a man had run into a park in Reading, about 40 miles west of London, where locals had been enjoying the evening sun on Saturday, and attacked people with a knife before being detained by unarmed officers. Police said an unarmed 25-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder and remains in police custody.
You'll be aware, last night a murder investigation was launched by Thames Valley police officers, and this has now been declared a terrorism incident. At 6:56 p.m. we received a report that a number of people had been stabbed in Forbury Gardens in Reading. Tragically, 3 people have died and others were injured in this attack. Lives have been devastated, and at this time the thoughts of all my officers and staff at Thames Valley Police are with those who have been affected in this tragic incident. Within 5 minutes of the first call, officers had apprehended a man and made an arrest. He remains in police custody at this time. I am sure we would all want to recognise the bravery of those police officers responding, but also that a number of members of the public were helping my officers and the victims at what was a very distressing scene. My thanks on behalf of Thames Valley Police go to them too. I would like to reassure you that at this time we do not believe there to be a wider risk to the public, and to reiterate that there is nothing to suggest that anyone else is involved in this incident. I am not in a position to talk about the man who has been arrested or give any further details about this case, as this is a live counter-terrorism investigation.
Spain has joined other European countries in relaxing border restrictions to tourists from the Schengen area, as comes as more countries around the world continue to test the waters in relaxing lockdowns. Spain reopened its borders to most European countries and ended a state of emergency imposed to contain the coronavirus. Spaniards have been allowed to move freely around the country, and many are expected to visit friends, relatives, and second residences in other regions. Dubai has also announced that residents will be allowed to return from Monday, as restrictions imposed to curb the spread of coronavirus are eased. From July 7th, tourists will be allowed in, although they will be required to present a recent COVID-19 negative certificate or undergo testing at Dubai airports. Over in China, long queues formed in parts of Beijing over the weekend as more people were tested for the coronavirus, which has seen a resurgence in the capital. Authorities say Beijing has expanded COVID-19 nucleic acid testing facilities and were capable of testing 1 million people per day. Finally, authorities in Germany's Göttingen have called on police to enforce quarantine measures following a rise in local coronavirus infections, which has caused the country's virus reproduction rate to spike. Sports news now. English Premier League action continued this evening as Liverpool edged a point closer to claiming a first EPL title despite being held to a frustrating goalless draw at neighbours Everton. The Reds had hoped to secure the first of 2 victories required to guarantee they will be crowned champions at an eerily fan-free Goodison Park, but struggled to break down a stubborn Blues rearguard. Edinson Cavani and Thomas Muller have declined to sign short-term contract extensions that would allow them play cup finals and the Champions League final tournament with Paris Saint-Germain. The Uruguay striker and the Belgium defender's contract expire on June 30th, which, unless they had agreed to sign a 2-month extension, rules them out of the French Cup and League Cup finals, as well as the Champions League Final 8 in Lisbon. Bulgarian tennis star Grigor Dimitrov has tested positive for COVID-19 just a day after his defeat to Borna Coric at the Adria Tour in Croatia. The Bulgarian also appeared at the Serbian leg of the tour last week and has come into contact with top 10 players Novak Djokovic, Alexander Zverev and Dominic Thiem. At the main news again, the Senate President Ahmed Lawan has visited President Muhammadu Buhari today. The leaders discussed the rising security crisis in the north and leadership crisis rocking the All Progressives Congress. That's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.